Jules, I'm more interested in talking about some of the tactical decisions that the two managers made.
We should.
But we have to talk about the incidents too.
Even Arteta said after the game, he said, you haven't asked me any tactical questions in his press conference, only about the referee.
So, but we have to talk about some of these incidents and the way they were handled. Not so much the refereeing. And I want to start with the Gabriel goal, okay? Because we had a little discussion about this off air. The first part is the way you defend against. Obviously, the guy's now scored 16 goals. Obviously, he's a threat. You just saw him last weekend.
Yeah.
You had two near identical situations. One where he's marked by Doku.
Yeah.
And one where he's marked, the second one where he scores, where he's marked by Kyle Walker. Now, you explained that, well, this is because the player, you're wondering why Doku, why Walker, why not somebody bigger and better on him. And the thinking is that you're defending in a hybrid system. It's zonally. You've got your big headers of the ball further back.
Yeah.
The idea is that Doku's there basically to somehow block him, to slow him down, to break his stride, so he can't get a good jump on it. When the corner comes in,
which is a lot of teams do.
A lot of teams do it. It's a tactic. I don't think it's a tactic that makes sense, frankly, when you're playing against a specific player like Gabriel, because Arsenal can then adjust, right? Arsenal presumably have a set piece coach. I'm sure you'll tell me his name because I'm sure he gets a lot
Nicolas
of attention.
Jovet,
because you can have an out-swinging corner, for example, which then Gabriel's going to win the header, and then he can head it back towards the goal, head it back to the second post. You can create, there's different things you can do. It's not like you've got one scheme, which is Gabriel running in, right? You can call something. You can call something different. So I don't think it's an open and shut thing. Certainly, both Doku and Walker with the weird hand check. Like, I understand what you're trying to do.
Yeah, it's just like
unsettling
him.
I presume Walker's quicker than Gabriel in terms of first step over longer distances. I'm sure Gabriel's faster, or probably faster. How do you get your timing so wrong that he manages to run past them both times?
No, I don't know. I think
without even putting a body on them. Neither Doku nor Walker. I presume you've practiced this before, right?
Yeah. I think from Walker, especially Doku, again, this is not what he does. But
presumably he's practiced it in lead up to the game, because presumably City prepared and said, okay, Gabriel's good in the air. They do this type of scheme.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jeremy, you go and do this.
But that's why, I mean, I don't know. I've got nothing like Doku, Walker. They're just there to really be a nuisance for. This is not. I don't think this is where the goal is decided. It's not on who is with Gabriel before Saka takes that corner. I've got more issues with Erling Haaland being at the near post when exactly, because that's what they do all the time, where the ball is going to end up at the far post. Why is Erling Haaland the tallest player in this City team in the near post? It doesn't make any sense.
I would argue what they're trying to do there is two things. One is he may be the tallest player. He's not the best header of the ball. And secondly, just having him at the near post means that you're highly unlikely to try a near post corner, right? So we say like, oh, they're more effective at the far post, and all the players are lined up. And if you look at this, the freeze frame, there's like 5 Arsenal players on the far post, right? That's fine. Other players should shift across, but having a taller center back he's obviously not a center back, but you know what I mean, right? At the near post means that really the only place you can put the corner.
But that's the only place where Arsenal want to put the corner anywhere. Arsenal would never put the corner near post anywhere.
So Arsenal never vary their corner kick.
But that's not what they do. This is not what they do. Their combination on corner at the moment is nothing to do with the near post. Right. So I just don't understand how City prepared for this game and thinking, we can put Haaland at tallest player. Whether he's good or not in the air, it's a body that is taller than all the others. Put him where all the big Arsenal boys are. Don't leave him there for no reason. Literally, what Haaland did was just looking at the ball, going over his head twice in 8 minutes, considering a goal.
It just has to be a very good delivery to miss out Haaland and be in the same place. I know Saka can deliver the ball very well, but you're still making it more difficult for his delivery.
I don't think so. I think it's just a massive mistake from a City point of view not to have Haaland, even just to be a problem for Saliba, Havertz, Calafiori and Gabriel in that zone. This is a zonal marking, so they can have the zones they want, all of them: Diaz, Akanji, Gvardiol and Haaland. because they're the 4 main guys to defend. Why would you put Haaland in that near post? I just don't understand it whatsoever.
Some people also took issue with whether Ederson was somehow fouled or impeded. He obviously had players around here, Martinelli on one side and forget who was on the other side of him.
Yeah, Timber maybe. But the VAR check said it for Martinelli. Are they called Theodoro? I thought his first name was Gabriel. But on the big screen, he said Theodoro something Martinelli. And I was like, who is
the dude's
Theo?
Brazilian. He has 27 names. They all do.
But yeah, VAR checked it for Martinelli's impeding potentially.
I have to say, just watching the replay, it seems to me that he's literally, he's standing very close to him. A lot of times when that happens, you have, I mean, for me, like, I tend to be, and maybe it's because I have a soft spot for Vicario, I tend to be more charitable towards goalkeepers. And I absolutely hate the way you get some, like, Neanderthal pundit off X-Pro in this country. Like, he's got to be stronger there. Like, what the hell does that mean? No, seriously, what does that mean? What, he's supposed to fly in the air? Like, whatever. But in this occasion, to me, Martinelli is standing there. He's not moving towards Ederson.
No.
He is literally standing there. Now, sometimes in the past, what you would see is, if the goalkeeper has got somebody close to him, he calls over a defender and they go and they wrestle and push the other guy away, whatever. Ederson doesn't do that. So I don't understand the logic for the foul. Surely Martinelli can stand where he likes.
True. I think because David James was sat not far from us, and he said this is a foul. I mean, goalkeeping union, everything,
right.
Blah, blah, blah. But he said that Martinelli is just waiting there, knowing that Ederson is gonna run back to try to get to the ball at his far post, and Martinelli is there.
Sorry, can I jump in 1 second?
To block him.
David James knows the ball's going to going back to the point you were making before about Haaland. David James knows the ball's coming back to the far post, right? Because Arsenal always put the ball there. That's what you said.
No.
Should Ederson have also known that?
No, but when Ederson sees the trajectory of the ball, everybody knows it's for the far post. So I think Ederson is in the middle of his goal.
So why isn't he closer to the far post then, to begin with?
Well, no, he has to start in the middle of his goal, guy.
Why? Is this another rule?
It's not.
No, but
it's not a rule. The goalkeeper starts a corner or a wide free kick in the middle of his goal. This is what everybody does.
Well, first of all, that's not exactly true. It depends on the positioning and so on. Some goalkeepers like to stay off center. But if, as you say, and look, maybe he's doing it to get a jump or whatever, he wants the extra steps. I take your point there. What I would personally question a little bit is, and this goes back to the Haaland thing, where there isn't part of a bigger thing. If they think there is a legit threat that Arsenal are going to change it and put it at the near post, maybe that's why Haaland is there. And maybe Ederson is also thinking, oh, look, we've countered it because we do think that there is a risk that they go to the near post, even though everybody's at the far post. And that's why I stand in the middle of the goal where, if need be, I can get to the near post. Did you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, maybe. I just think you stay in the middle of the goal to see where the ball is going, and if the ball is going into your far
post. And if there's a player there's no offsides on corner kicks. No. Martinelli can stand where he wants. And as long as he's not moving into Ederson.
That's true. I'm with you.
Set up your defenders better.
I'm with you. And Pep said after the game, he said, we know that the best team on set pieces in the world and we should have handled that much better. He said it's such a challenge and we prepared for it, but we were clearly not prepared enough because they scored, and they could have scored 2 because the first one he has to score as well, Gabriel.
Yeah. I guess what really hurts is seeing almost 2 identical situations twice, especially when you know it's coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
And by the way, future Arsenal opponents, Jules just said, the ball always goes to the far post.
Absolutely.
So bear this in mind.
Absolutely.
We have to talk about the Rodri injury because he's really important. I haven't had we're recording this on a Monday morning. I don't have the injury update. Do you?
No, I don't think. I think he would go today for.
I'm imagining we're not going to see him until after the international break.
It looked like he was in real pain, and Guardiola made a good point after the game. He said, "Listen, if he was not really in pain, he would have stayed on the pitch. This is Rodri we're talking about. He doesn't come off for nothing." So Pep said, "I think there must be something. Otherwise, he would have stayed on the pitch." And when you see his knee jarring, that's the word, jarring on his own. I mean, him and Partey are just running, and then his knee goes. I think it's not a good look. the fact that he walked out of the pitch on his own, I'm not sure that gives any indication, because you can still do your ACL and still walk for a few minutes after he went straight into the tunnel and dressing room. I just don't know.
Say those three letters. I refuse to believe that it's not.
I hope for him it's not. But he looked in real like.
In terms of longer term impact to City, before we get back to tactical decisions, which Arteta wants us to talk about, right?
Yeah.
I kind of feel, obviously Rodri's super important. You have other players that can play that role, not as well, obviously, as Rodri, but in Matheus Nunes, in Kovacic, in Gundogan, who, going back in time, played that before he thought he was a number 10. I kind of feel like they have cover sufficient against most teams, and the priority should be give Rodri a long break if he needs it.
Yeah.
And make sure you have the best Rodri second half of the season, yeah?
Yeah, I think you're right. Rico Lewis can play midfield. John Stones can play midfield. So, they've got other options. Nobody can replace the best defensive midfielder in the world, obviously. But, they've got enough depth in that squad to make up for, let's hope, not too long without him.
All right, now let's go to the choices, starting with Manchester City.
Yeah.
Last year, you pointed this out to me when they had the 0-0. Pep did something which on paper I think would have made sense. If Arsenal are going to park the bus, no point having speedy wingers. Better to have my ballers out there that they can do a 1-2, win a foul, whatever, right? And he started without wingers. This time around, he goes in the opposite decision. You did your Nostradamus act pre-game saying like, oh, I'm sure he's going to play with two wingers.
It's not Nostradamus. It just makes a lot of sense. It was a mistake for him last season to start with no wingers. You play against a team that plays so low, use all the width of the pitch. But you have wingers who go one-on-one, not Foden and Bernardo Silva playing wide, who all they want is coming inside and are not good in one-on-one. Is not what they do. They don't have the pace. They're super skillful players, but they're
There's
not
no
wingers.
Space for them to run into. So look, I take your point.
No, if
right?
you create a one-on-one on the side for two wingers,
yes, and you want a free kick or you beat your opponent. No, I get that. I think I have less of an issue with what you did last year. If your idea is you want to control possession, take the take the sting out of the game, maybe slow things down a little bit, and try to get there with the intricate passing, and then you chuck on the wingers when the fullbacks are tired. I think that's more of a standard strategy. I think.
Yeah.
Than starting with the wingers. If you think Arsenal are going to park the bus, because you're not going to have any space to run into. And you don't have KDB, which I think is another big thing. I mean, De Bruyne,
sure.
A big absence. Bernardo Silva, great player, but obviously he's not Kevin De Bruyne.
Yeah.
That part, to me, coupled with the fact that Gundogan, other than hitting the post, I thought had a quiet game. Those two things together suggest to me that, if, again, Captain Hindsight, 2020, I don't know it was the right approach for this game.
I think it was completely the right approach. I think he had to start with wingers. We saw Savinho's impact straight away on the first goal. Doku, Timber defended really, really well. And the only thing I would say about the wide players and the wingers, I thought Guardiola would bring on Grealish earlier than the 78th minute. And when Grealish came on, it was different for White, who then played right wing back, if you want, or whatever, when Timber came off. It felt like it was a different challenge for White than Doku. And Doku was a little bit predictable again, whereas for Grealish, and the goal comes from Grealish anyway. Grealish makes that goal. He gets the corner first, and then he makes the goal on that corner playing quickly. So I would have brought on Grealish earlier, but I think he was completely right to start with the two wingers because, again, that was the width that they didn't have last season that they really lacked, that this time was there, plus all the half spaces used by Bernardo Silva, and then on the other side too. So for me, it was the right approach completely. And to be fair, for the first, until the Rodri's injury, it worked well for them. After that, they lost control of the game.
Yeah, Rodri getting injured, minute 20?
Yeah.
Do we think Phil Foden's not fit?
I just think he had a short, Pep, a bit like Rodri. This was Rodri's first start. Foden hasn't started yet because I think they came back probably a bit injured from the Euros, quite late as well. And you just need a bit of time because it's such a long season, as you said. Don't rush them in when you have all that depth in your squad. I don't think they needed Foden so far, really, to start a game. They've been.
We say that's such a long season, right? But equally, it's been. I mean, Euros finished 10 weeks ago, something like that.
Yeah.
I get it. You need a break and so on. I don't know that it can just be a fitness thing. I would imagine there's some sort of injury that needs to heal or whatever. Because again, I'm all for resting players, too many fixtures, but you do need them. And I think you could have needed a fit and proper Foden against Inter as well when you were held at home.
Yeah.
You know, that Inter game.
So he came on at half-time against Inter.
Yeah, he comes on in the second half and stuff. But, you know,
Yeah.
it's a different situation. The reality is that, you know, that Inter were only the second team, I think, in something like 2.5 years to keep Manchester City to a clean sheet at home.
Yeah.
I just think two big back-to-back games. And look, even if they'd lost to Inter, which was highly unlikely, and they could have still beaten Inter, it's not going to impact probably where they finish in the Champions League.
Sure.
But this Arsenal game was big. And
Yeah.
had they lost it, you know, it could have been a different momentum to the league at this stage. In terms of Arteta, Ben White dropped. Were you expecting this?
No, I didn't see this one coming. I won't lie. I think White hasn't been good in the last two games, the Brighton game and the Spurs game. At right back, and I think there was a big desire from Arteta to see Calafiori at left back. And Timber did well against Spurs, and I think Timber at right back makes sense. He's right-footed. Calafiori at left back, even if he was a bit naive, completely naive on the first goal and made a mistake, he made up for it with his wonderful goal. But I think this was the idea very much, and I wouldn't be surprised if this back four now, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Calafiori, is the one going forward for Leicester at the weekend, for the PSG game in the Champions League as well.
Look, I know Timber's played as a defender for most of his career, but he's basically a midfielder playing in defense, right? I mean, it's everything, his physical profile, whatever, right? I find it interesting, whereas Ben White is a center back playing right back. Is there a bit of a shift there in the approach? I mean, you want Timber to step into midfield more? I feel like if you have Timber, between Timber and Calafiori, you have two guys who can come across and be that extra passing midfielder. And maybe you can keep them off balance a little more in a way that you couldn't do with White. If this is what you want to do, if you want to move away from essentially the four centre backs.
Yeah, it's interesting because in the warm-up, Arsenal, so the way Arsenal was warming up, at some point, Timber, Saliba and Gabriel warmed up the three of them on the same line with Calafiori ahead of them, like if Calafiori was stepping up from left back into midfield. And did that drill for like a good 5 minutes, passing the ball, doing the triangle with Calafiori, then playing long, and then starting again and again and again and again. So I wonder if in Arteta's mind, Calafiori is the one, a bit like Zinchenko used to do, coming inside, and Timber staying a little bit more as a third centre-back, which, you're right, would be maybe a bit more surprising than if he was White. I don't know. I guess we've just seen not against Bolton on Wednesday in the League Cup because it's not going to count. But then certainly at the weekend against Leicester, and then maybe even more against PSG next week on Tuesday. How or the way Arteta sees that back four and who plays and where and what they do in possession.
All right, let's get to Arteta tactics, because in that second half, you were there, a glorious siege. I didn't find it boring. I just accept that, you got to come up with something.
Yeah.
It looked to me like, I think they took 28 shots in the second half, which I think is the second highest shots on goal in one half
26,
ever.
Yeah. Half of them were by Akanji, Vardiol and Ruben Diaz.
Yeah, so not necessarily the guys you want to be shooting from. And I think most of those were from outside the box, right?
Yeah.
So it looked to me like there was no real answer. And I kind of felt, right, well, you have Haaland there. I know heading isn't his big thing, but equally he's really tall and he can get up there, and he scored some good headed goals as well. And he had one crazy leap in this game. I was a bit surprised he didn't mix it up a little bit more.
Yeah,
it seemed like you're so confident if I play the percentages, if I take enough shots at some point, I will get that lucky bounce and the ball will sit up for me and I will score, which is ultimately what happened, right?
Yeah, you're right.
I agree with you on Grealish trying to get the one-on-one, trying to win the free kicks. You've got a lot of good headers of the ball. City are no slouches on set pieces either, certainly attacking set pieces. But what surprised me from Arsenal's point of view is at some point you've got Martinelli who's playing as a fullback, right? And he's running himself into the ground. Yeah. And every time Arsenal, I think they had 12% possession in the second half. Every time they had the ball, they just couldn't get out.
Yeah.
And part of the reason you can't get out is your furthest forward is Havertz, who's got to do a ton of defensive work, and he's there on his own.
Yeah.
Why not? And I tweeted this out. Why not have Saka's come off? Why not have a speedy outlet? Why not bring in some fresh legs? Maybe in the Martinelli position. We saw Jesus come on at the very end, and you pointed out he gave the ball away. Fine, but like, I was surprised it didn't happen sooner, because ultimately you want to keep them on. You don't want to give them the luxury to have 10 guys lining up at the edge of your box, which is essentially what City had.
Yeah, the only way I see it, I think it must be really hard to come on in a game like that to start with, and also for a coach when things are working out well, because City were doing nothing with the balls.
Well,
and
they're taking a million shots.
Yeah,
and you know any one of those shots, Raya can spill it, anything can happen.
But having Sterling or Gabriel Jesus there is not going to prevent them from shooting anyway. They're always going to shoot.
Yes and no. I mean, you can. There's different things you can do. You can try to be bolder if that's what you want to do, and try and have him, rather than playing left back, you can have him play more central and try to run around and disrupt the build-up. You can try that. Most of all, I think what you can do is when you win the ball, you look for him, and even if it's just 2-3 times, he gets the ball and he wins a foul or the ball goes out of play, you reset and you can move your defense up again. But
they will still shoot anyway.
But then that's fine. But you're limiting the number of shots because they're not camped out in the final third. It's just that.
Yeah, but it would have been minimal. I think I think maybe it's hard when you are Arteta and you're there.
I'm sure it's hard.
But what I find fascinating.
And by the way, let's be clear on this. I'm not second guessing Arteta. I'm just saying these are decisions that coaches have to make.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
It's interesting. And look, he knows this was the other option. He's not a fool, and he chose one option. That's why.
What was fascinating was Pep said after the game that he doubted himself in that second half. He didn't know what to do. He said I didn't know what the changes. I didn't know if I should put Ruben Diaz on the right instead of Walker central. He said I didn't know where the players should be. He said we tried to put John Stones there to go with Haaland in the mix, really. And I find that fascinating because this is a drill that you do every day at training, pretty much, where you have 4v3, 6v5. So for the extra man to count, just in case one day you find yourself 11 against 10 or 10 against 9 or whatever. So you make the extra man count. You try to jump a pass because every time you've passed the ball, somebody from the opposition is coming out to prevent you from shooting. So you jump a pass. And yet City was slow in the transmission. All that second half, it was far too slow, far too pedestrian time. So even Pep said, I didn't know what to do really. And I find that fascinating. And I wonder if it was to be the same for Arteta. What do I do now? Because this is working for now. City are not scoring. We're still 2-1 up. If I change something and Gabriel comes on, but it's just not in the rhythm of this game, makes a mistake, we concede a goal, and then I should have left Martinelli because he was in the game and we were really blocking City. So I just don't know. But that's what I found fascinating about that. For me, it was one of the best games I've ever seen live. It was amazing.
I wasn't there.
Oh yeah, it was
quite
just
go
incredible.
that far. In fact, I saw.
But because I've never seen anything like that, and nobody has. You've never seen two title contenders playing like that, 11 against 10 for 45 minutes. It's a long time. For 10 minutes there, but like that, two teams of that level and talent, it's just amazing. For me, it was fantastic.
It certainly was different. Final point on this, David Raya. In that, as you know, I've been critical of him in the past. I think this season he's come on really big. He's made some big saves. But in that long spell of all the shots, I'm sure he must have made more than one save. I only remember the one save from the Haaland.
He has two on Gvardiol. He had the header on Haaland and the shot from Walker on him, and then the two Gvardiol volleys.
But how tested was he really with really difficult saves?
Yeah, no, because most of the shots were blocked.
And that speaks a lot to
off target.
To the way I think those 45 minutes went.
Yeah, and also for Erling Haaland's 100th goal in 105 appearances for Manchester City. This is just monstrous. It's what Cristiano did for Real Madrid. Nobody else has ever done it in the history of the game. It's an incredible return. And he hadn't scored in 3 games for Arsenal. So I think he was good. And it's a cheeky finish that I liked. Good run where he stops and goes again, not to be offside. I know he didn't do anything else in the game.
No.
But that moment, and for him to get to 100 goals in 105 games is ridiculous.
And 0 goals in 2 games against Francesco Acerbi. Just saying.